Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at the R.H.E. podcast. My name is Chrono. Isaiah Diesel couldn't make it with us today, even though he's sitting right here. He's just sitting in as an observer and sort of throwing me to the wolves until he feels better. We have a very special guest today. This is Grumpy Old Dude, or God, aka Ed Schofield. How you doing today, Ed?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm definitely not God, but I am the original God.
Well, you got a few years on me, it looks like, so I wouldn't question it. So this isn't a debate channel. This podcast is respect, humility, empathy, and what we try to do here is just try to see things through the other people's perspectives. It doesn't matter what they are. That's one of the reasons why I really love and support this channel. It's pretty much it's open to having that conversation with just about anyone. And honestly, I'm really relishing the opportunity to talk to someone of what I hear a little bit about you. Can you give us a little bit of an introduction, a bio about yourself?
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you. And so my real name is Ed Schofield. I am what I like to call a recovering neo-Nazi. I don't say reformed because I didn't reform myself. I recovered from a horrible ideology and a lifestyle. I'm an original R.H.E. member of state prison Skinheads. R.H.E. means I was there at the founding. I am a founding member of that organization. I spent 20 years within state prison Skinheads from 1992 till 2012, when I walked away completely. And for 8 years, I was a practicing creator, or someone who practices the religion of creativity, which is a white supremacist religion. It was a religion founded by a man known as Ben Klassen, who is a former Florida state representative, in 1973. So when I was just a baby, I have worked tirelessly and very, very hard to finally have the United States recognize the creativity movement as a terrorist organization. Because of that, they actually have a price out on my head.
Who was they?
The creativity movement. Now, of course, they'll deny this because they make the claim that they do not advocate for violence or criminal activities, yet most of their higher ups and leaders have been prosecuted and sent to prison for violent crimes and terrorist activities. Yeah, I've received countless death threats. I've been shot at. Yeah, it got really bad for a long time. I haven't received anything in a while, but I think that's because they don't know where I'm at currently. I literally had to move 5 times within 2 years, so I put work in to battle the hate that I once believed in, and it's cost me quite a bit, but it's been worth it. I've worked with numerous groups, Beyond Barriers USA, a group founded by Jeff Scoop, who is the former commander of the National Socialist Movement, and like myself is a former extremist who is now an activist against hate, racism, and extremism. I've done countless interviews and helped with all kinds of different, programs and organizations to battle extremist movements and ideologies. And now I I haven't been on there in a few weeks. Things got really busy around here, but I do have a YouTube channel where I try and educate people on white supremacy, extremist movements, and, leave it open for people to get in touch with me if they're looking to escape.
Fantastic. Wow, there's a lot there. I would love to take a deep dive on. You feel up for it?
Why not?
All right. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. Maybe I need like a few seconds to digest and figure out where I want to jump in first. Before we do that, how about a lightning round? Some softball questions, really lighthearted. They don't mean much. You don't have to spend long thinking about them, and they certainly won't lead to any kind of assumptions or what have you. Super simple. All right. Favorite car?
1963 Corvette Stingray.
Oh, nice. Nice. I like that one. All right. Star Wars, prequels or sequels?
I don't really do sci-fi.
Okay. Neither.
Not into Star Wars.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Worst song in the world?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would have to say, and I can't remember who sings it, but a song called Dead Skunk in the Middle of the Road.
Wow, that's some right material right there to write a song about. Wow. All right. Early to bed or early to rise?
Both.
Okay. If you could take only one thing with you on a desert island, what would it be?
My wife.
Well, that nerfs my second question. I was going to ask if you could only take one person. Let's start with 1992. You said you were one of the founding members of the Skinheads, right?
Yeah, state prison Skinheads.
So that's like American History X, right?
No,
Okay.
sort of in a way, but American History X, he was already a skinhead before he went to prison.
Gotcha.
State prison Skinheads is strictly a prison gang. We did, well, I guess I'm pretty sure they still do have supporters that aren't in prison. But the way state prison Skinheads was set up, technically, once you're released, you are no longer an active member of the gang. You have to be in prison to be an active member of state prison Skinheads. You can still be a supporter if you're not in prison, but you're not an active member. You have no say, no vote in anything that goes on within the gang. And, like I said, you can still be a supporter, and vice versa. They will support you, but you don't get a say in any of the gang activities.
It sounds like with a hardline requirement like that they sound very organized.
Yeah, state prison Skinheads was very organized. Little background on that real quick. When I was 19 years old, I was arrested, charged, and convicted for first-degree involuntary homicide. I have a very extensive martial arts background and was actively fighting in MMA semi-pro. I had just won a fight in Atlantic City, August 24th, 1991. I just won a fight. I was in Wildwood, New Jersey. I saw a guy beating up his girlfriend, and I intervened. He pulled the knife on me, and I defended myself, and unfortunately, I took this man's life. Because of my martial arts background, the jury in my case did not find in my favor of self-defense, and I was sentenced to 30 years in prison. It took me 12 and a half years to finally win a federal appeal and get that conviction thrown out and overturned and expunged from my record. And during that time, when I got arrested, is when I first started really being introduced to the white supremacy movement. there were a couple of friends of mine that I grew up with who started feeding me propaganda and the white supremacist ideologies, the whole gambit, the Holocaust denial, and how, I was only in jail because I was a white guy who killed a Jewish cop's kid. And, that's the only reason I got arrested. If it would have been anybody else, they'd have let me go. And I had decided that if I got found guilty on this, I wasn't going to join these groups that they were promoting to me, such as Aryan Nations and these different skinhead groups and things like that. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. If I get convicted on this, I'm starting my own thing and I'm taking over. It's kind of one of my downfalls. I mean, in a way, it's a good thing. I've never been a very good follower. I always want to be the leader, but sometimes that gets me in a lot of trouble, as it did with SPS. One of the biggest things is, and I tell a lot of people this, especially people that I'm trying to help get out of the movement, that the biggest thing for me was I was angry. I got arrested for defending myself. I was in jail. So now I'm angry about that. I'm also, just kind of really not in a good headspace because I took somebody's life, and that messed me up for a while.
Mm.
And I just felt like I was losing control of everything. And one way to get some control back was to go ahead and start doing my own thing. And I started believing this propaganda they were feeding me. And a lot of people within white supremacy, they're very good at the con game. They put just enough truth in there that you don't see the lies. And you start believing all of it. Well, if that's true, then this is probably true.
Mm.
And this is true. I know this is true because science proves that this one thing is true. So this stuff must be true. And when you're a younger person like I was, I mean, yeah, I was 19, but that's comparatively young when you're talking to a lot of other people that are in their 30s and their 40s, and they're telling you, hey, look at this bit of history that they don't tell you. Look at this bit of science that they don't tell you. And they show you these pseudoscience things from people like J.P. Rushton. I didn't know anything about science. Well, here's this guy. He's got a PhD and all this other stuff. He's a real scientist. He must know what he's talking about. And they present you these arguments that, oh, see, there's an actual correlation between genetic differences in Black people and white people. Well, I bought into it and I believed it. So I started following this ideology. And that led me to one, like I said, when I got convicted, I decided, okay, we're going to start state prison skinheads. And I did that by corresponding with people who were higher ups in the Aryan Brotherhood.
Mm.
And the Aryan Brotherhood is actually who sanctioned us and told us that we could start this prison gang and they would back us up. The only thing they threw in there was we couldn't use anything related to Aryan Brotherhood. It had to be separate from that. Therefore, we started State Prison Skinheads, better known as SPS.
Dude, I appreciate you being so honest and saying all of this. It's got to be tough stuff to revisit, especially when you're trying to actively fight it so many years later.
Well, that's the thing. It's For me, sometimes it's hard when I just think about it. When I come on a show like this, it's not that hard for me to revisit it because I want people to know, yeah, listen, this is what I did.
Mm,
And this is how easy it was for them to get their hooks into me and drag me into this mindset, you know. So be careful.
yeah,
Think about things. Don't just go off of your emotions and jump into something because that's going to end bad.
sure. Well, a lot of those things that you talk about, I feel like is a misinformation downward spiral rabbit hole that a lot of people find themselves in
Yeah.
over a very wide range of topics, whether or not the earth is flat, whether or not vaccines work. Uh, I mean, it could be any number of things. And there'd be people, well, I don't know how many PhDs there are for the flat earth thing, but I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to find someone with credentials to their name arguing for these points of views that are like, how did you get there? This
Yeah.
seems unlikely.
Yeah.
uh,
And like I said, the religion I followed was founded by a politician. This is somebody who, obviously isn't stupid.
mm,
I mean, they were a state representative. They have to have some kind of knowledgeable background. The man was a lawyer. He went to law
sure.
school.
It
And
takes
then,
certain amount of education and know-how to be able to end up in those kinds of situations. Uh,
yeah. And when you're like I said, when you're young, you're somebody like me who doesn't really have, I mean, I'm not saying I was stupid. I'm very intelligent,
sure.
but I didn't have a PhD. I didn't go to law school and things like that. So it made me think, well, these people are obviously smarter than me. Maybe I should listen to them.
Well, in order to accept a proposition, um, it doesn't mean you're uneducated, unintelligent. It just means you've accepted,
Exactly.
you're convinced by the thing that could happen to anyone, regardless of their background. But I agree with what you're saying. I mean, the best thing you can do is to defend yourself from possibly going down the wrong path is educating yourself, finding
Yeah.
that information, learning how to critically think through those things, and I mean, that ends up being your best defense. But when you get into spaces like this, the internet, where it's basically the wild, wild west, and people can discuss anything. I I don't know. A lot of people will say, well, like the internet's basically the gutter for uh, location wise for some of these conversations, but I think it also has the potential to be, you know, perhaps the best source uh, or the best locale because anyone can come together and have any conversation. I mean, I think sky's the limit when you have that kind of ingredients.
I look at it like this: view the internet as a library.
Mm,
Anybody can go to the library and pick up any book in there, and they can glean from it what they want, and they can also put their own spin on it if they want. They can read something about genetics and biology and say, oh, I know what words mean. So this means this, not what it's actually saying. It means what I think it's saying.
so
And
you would agree that the internet's basically just like wide open information. It doesn't
sure,
provide the interpretation, it's just the raw information.
it's information. Now
And
there
raw lies
are,
too. I mean,
yeah,
lies,
and
misinformation, pseudoscience, all it's all baked in there, and that's
yeah, and there's also things on here that are absolutely truthful. You just have to know how to recognize it. And that's where the problems start, is
mm.
getting people to, like you said, think critically and know how to recognize truth from, you know, BS.
Um, so I wanted to go back to the religion part that you talked about, the creativity religion.
Yeah.
Um, were you a part of that while you were starting SPS? Was that before, after?
That came after SPS.
Okay.
I had been in prison for a few years. I I am an ordained minister.
So am I.
I graduated from the now defunct Amherst Theological Seminary in
Mm.
Massachusetts.
Oh, a real one. Never mind.
Yeah, I was going to be a Catholic priest, and then I decided that did not fit with my personality and my lifestyle. So then I decided I was just going to be a non-denominational minister. And upon graduating from seminary, I um, changed my views completely and became an atheist.
Wow.
Yeah. So a couple of guys from the creativity, at the time, it was known as World Church of the Creator, and it was led by Matthew Hale. Um, these guys heard me talking about being an atheist and not believing in God and so on and so forth. And they approached me and said, "Hey, we're atheists too." And I'm like, "I thought you guys had a religion." And they're like, "We do. It's called creativity." Their religion is their race, and their race is their religion, is how they put it. That's one of the founding principles of this organization. Um, so I was interested. I'm like, how are you an atheist and you still have atheism? Like, how's that work? So, of course, they started feeding me their dogma.
Hmm.
They have lots of books. One of their main points is what they call salubrious living. You pretty much almost a vegan diet. You don't eat anything cooked if you can avoid it. It's all raw, uncooked vegetables, nuts, grains, things like that. And they're real big on, self-care, working out, making sure you keep yourself clean, you know, read as much as you can, educate, except they spin that education.
Yeah, through that
They tell
filter.
you, yeah, they tell you be careful because, of course, in their belief, the entire world is run by the Jewish conspiracy. So you have to be careful with education because they've altered that, yeah, to hide the truth from the white man. They like to claim that everybody in the world is out to get the white race because in their belief, white people are the only true humans. Every
Mm.
other ethnicity is actually a different species. Of course, science proves that that's not possible. Everybody on this planet is human. Uh, doesn't matter what color your skin is, we're all humans. We're
Yeah.
all the same species.
Well, so I just want to add that I mean, listening to this, I'm sure you've been exposed to these conversations in connection of these kinds of discussions as well. Um, yeah, race is totally a social construct. Like in terms of biology, there just really is nothing there. Species is defined by loosely the ability to interbreed, and
Exactly.
having mixed races is obviously demonstrative of that. Um, so
Yeah.
the whole idea that one race could be, I mean, the superiority complex there. I agree with you 100%.
Well, and here's my thing. People try and equate ethnicity with race. It's been going on for hundreds of years. The problem is there is only one race, and that's human.
The human race, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I got a few questions here. Wow, a lot more than just a few. Um, so you talked about how this creativity religion lured you in with the whole atheism thing. Isaiah was real curious. Do you think being an atheist or I don't like using this term, but I'll use it for the sake of conversation, the ideology of atheism, do you think that would make one more susceptible to going down a path of race supremacy?
No, not at all. It, anybody can be racist. Doesn't matter who you are. There are people who claim to be Christian who are racist. Aryan nations, for example, the Church of Jesus Christ Christian, they don't believe in evolution. They don't believe in the whole genetic thing or anything like that. They feel they are superior because they view the Bible as God telling them they are God's chosen people. They twist, the religion of Christianity to say they are the true Israelites and therefore they are superior.
Mm. So through your eyes, you think it's more likely that a religious person could become racist?
No, I'm not
No.
saying that either.
Interesting. Okay.
You could be religious, you could be atheist, anybody can become racist. It depends on, who they're talking to and what they believe.
Mm.
It has nothing to do. Extremism and racism aren't always equated with religion. Of course, you have Muslims that are extremists. They commit acts of terrorism. But you also have a lot of Muslims who I am actually personal friends with now that say that's not right. They're misinterpreting what our religion says.
Mm.
It's like, well, prove that. I don't think it's anything to do with your religion. I'm sorry. It's just a matter of these people wanting to commit acts of violence and they're finding something, anything to justify that. And I was just as guilty as that. I was angry. I was mad at everybody in the world because the system had screwed me. And I justified my anger with these beliefs that people were shoving at me.
Yeah, I get you. So I've gone through couples counseling a few times. In one of the couples counseling things I went through, they were using something called emotionally focused therapy, and it was all about like targeting those emotions. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest takeaways that I had from it was that anger is a secondary emotion. It's not the first thing you land at. It's always a product of something else. The anger is like a self-defense mechanism. It's like you like entering fight or flight, the adrenaline's pumping and it's just trying to protect you. But something else started that, something that would make you sad, feel vulnerable, feel afraid. So when you say you were mad at the world, you felt screwed, that's kind of what's going through my head. I feel like I just got put behind the black ball, and I have to do whatever I can to make things right, put myself in a safer spot. And
yeah,
can you talk about how when you did find yourself in that extremely unenviable position of serving a multi-decade sentence for something that you thought you were doing right? I mean, the saying, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. I mean, you were trying to save a girl who was being attacked, and you were put in this situation where your training would basically worked against you. I mean, what were you feeling that that would have led you to immediately jump to that anger and lashing out and building something that I guess this monster that you're fighting today?
Yeah. It wasn't really, it wasn't about protection per se, and people ask me that all the time, did you join this group, for protection? And I kind of have to remind them, I didn't actually join this group. I helped start this group.
Sure.
And it wasn't really for protection because I can handle my own. I'm almost 50 now, and if it comes down to it, I'll still throw down if I have to. And at the time, I was in my prime. I was a young man. I was still working out every single day for hours a day, and I was hitting hard. It was more of pushing back. It was more of trying to reclaim some kind of control, and I don't know that I guess the older I get, it's like, I really don't care about having all that control anymore. I want to be able to eat 3 meals a day, have a roof over my head, and, be left alone.
I get it. I agree too. I mean, you take the biggest, strongest man on the planet, they can still get angry. They can still feel
Yeah.
vulnerable or feel out of control. That's
Yeah. And
no one's immune to that.
and part of that anger too, I do credit to me being so young. I didn't take time to sit down and rationalize things and think about it and say, hey, this sucks, but take your time, be patient, and go about this the legal way, file these appeals, and get yourself out of this. And part of my leaving white supremacy was the fact that I won my appeal. That was one of the factors, because I was like, okay, finally. It took 12 and a half years. I went to jail August 24th, 1991. I didn't get out until May 8th of 2004. That was a long time. But when I did get out, it was like, okay, finally somebody listened and I won. I justified myself. I'm back to square one now. Got to start rebuilding.
So you would say now, certainly compared to then, you were way more emotionally mature and able to understand the emotions.
Oh, absolutely.
Counter like on minute by minute basis, and how to breathe, calm down, reflect, and like try and choose, okay, this is the right path I need to take, not just knee-jerk reaction kind of
thing. Absolutely. Like I said, when I got arrested and I knew, okay, they're not just going to let me go. Like I'm going to have to fight this. I was still kind of maintaining, but I was still mad that I was in jail. Mm. And then the more it progressed and the more I realized, like, hey, if I lose this case, I'm not going home anytime soon. And I started getting angrier and angrier. And like I said, I decided if I lose and they convict me of this, I'm going to run this prison system. I'm going to take over because I have nothing to lose now. But if I'd have slowed down and thought about it, I had everything to lose, because my actions in prison could have affected my appeal process. They could have been like, hey, this guy's just a freaking dangerous, out of control individual. Who the hell cares about legalities? We can't let him go. Yeah.
So again, there's multiple directions I want to go in, even from here. You went in 1991. You got out in 2004.
Yeah.
But you said you were still a part of SPS until 2012, right?
Yes, I was. Part of that was, being a founding member. And like I said, once you get out of prison, technically you don't have any say over anything within the gang. But I'm a founding member. This was my brainchild. I started this whole ball of wax rolling.
So you're sort of free to have like those exceptions to the rule.
Exactly. And everybody knew it. You know, all I have to do is get in touch with somebody and say, hey, make this happen.
Mm.
You know, I still had a lot of respect from everybody within SPS. Now, I had already left the creativity movement at this point. A lot of that was I started really looking into their, you know, ideologies and things like that. And it's like, you know, yeah, I just can't get behind this. I'm not really with this whole salubrious diet. Like,
Mm.
I'm sorry, but you know, um, I grew up in a, you know, kind of a mixed family, and I like bacon, so and
I- it, it's it's
I
just
drink way
humorous
too
that
much coffee. Yeah.
it's just humorous that no bacon is a harder sell than racist supremacy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you know, but
Oh.
it was a lot of factors that got me out of that so-called religion. You know, I started seeing the contradictions,
Mm.
and I started thinking about this religion the same way I thought about Christianity when I became an atheist. And I'm like, okay, so we have these different contradictions. They claim we don't, you know, advocate for violence or, you know, violating criminal laws, but at the same time they have these people within their organization that have gone on shooting sprees and died as a result, and they put them on a pedestal and call it Martyrs Day. This is a holiday for the creativity religion. And I'm like, but you said you don't advocate for violence. So how is this guy a hero now for shooting a bunch of innocent people? That's a contradiction. Then the leader of the organization at the time, Matt Hale, gets arrested and goes to prison for 40 years for trying to assassinate a federal judge. And I'm like, but you don't advocate for violence. That's a contradiction.
Mm.
So I started looking at all the other little contradictions. You know, um, one of their beliefs is don't do business with anyone who's not white. Don't buy from anyone who owns a Jewish store or a deli or whatever. Don't buy from anyone or trade with anyone who's black. You know, things like that. But while I'm, you know, in this religion, I'm watching these people who were supposed to be reverends of creativity make deals with the black guys in prison. And I'm like, hey, doesn't that go against, you know, the teachings of the church? Well, we're going to make an exception because, you know, reasons. And I'm like, no, you know, no, man, I'm not buying this anymore. You know?
Was
So
it
I
go ahead, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I left that religion in what 2002. So a couple
Mm.
of years before I got out of prison, I decided I'm done with this. Take your books back. Stay away from me. I don't want to hear it.
So in the movie American History X, the character played by Ed Norton, he sees some similar dealings that you just touched upon, uh,
Yeah.
doing deals with the people that you weren't supposed to. Is that like the exact kind of thing that you're talking about?
Yeah. And that part of that movie, I can agree with to some extent. It depends on what organization you're with.
Mm.
There are white supremacy groups that are that hardcore. Under no circumstances will you deal with anyone outside of your race, period. And if you're caught doing that, there's going to be hell to pay. um, I myself had some of those issues. um, One of my childhood friends, someone I grew up with, is a black man. um, his we'll use his street name. He was a high-ranking member of the Blood Street Gang, and he was known as OG No Good. No Good and I grew up together since, I mean, kindergarten, you know, and we both ended up in prison, and I would go talk to him all the time, you know, and people within SPS and the creativity religion, when I was, you know, involved in that, they would view that in a not so favorable light. And there were many times where I took a sanction for it, even though I was, you know, one of the founding members of SPS. Everybody else said, hey, listen, that's not okay. And you're going to have to take some body beatings over it. I'm like, whatever, let's do it. And then I'd go back and talk to him again. And they're like, seriously? And I'm like, dude, get the punching. Like, I'll take it. And it eventually got to a point where everybody realized, listen, we can punch on him all we want. Like, he's not going to stop talking to No Good. Like, you're not going to break that bond. So screw it. Let it go.
Do you still talk to him?
He's deceased.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
So you talked about pulling at these threads, starting to see these contradictions, and you just couldn't accept their dogma anymore. Was it that exact kind of thinking, that thread pulling, that questioning and the contradiction hunting that eventually led you out of white supremacy?
Partly. One of the major things is when I got released, I I had already started questioning white supremacy, you know, right before I got out. An older gentleman that I was in prison with gave me some books that he had from doing college studies, and they were on biology and genetics. And I started reading these, and I started understanding what biology and genetics really were. And I started rethinking everything. I started questioning everything. Okay, well, this is accepted science. This is peer reviewed. It's undeniable science. And if this is true, what else is false about white supremacy? So I started really looking into things. I started getting more into history and studying that and realizing, hey, a lot of this stuff that they've been trying to feed me never happened. This is bullshit. That's one of the major things. I'm bluntly honest, sometimes to a fault. And I don't like being lied to. And the more lies that I saw within it, the angrier I got about white supremacy, and eventually decided, you know, I'm done with this. You fed me a bunch of lies. I don't care that this small little bit of it is true. This big part of it is a lie. We're done now.
Sort of like poisoning the well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested. Did OG No Good ever play a part in you questioning the white supremacy thing? I mean, if he was your buddy, it's like, I mean, if you're going to be part of this movement, why are you over here talking to me?
Yeah, he used to ask me all the time, like, you know, I'd go over there like, no good, what's going on, bro? And he's like, what's up, dumbass? Like, what's that about, man? He's like, why you running around with the skinheads and everything? I'm like, why you running around with all these hoodlums? Yeah. You know, and he's like, seriously, he was like, come on, man. He's like, you can't be like that. And I'm like, listen, it is what it is. And he's like, so I'm your enemy now? I'm like, never. You should know that. And he's like, well, if you're going to be a skinhead, how are we going to be friends? And I'm like, You're not going to give up on me, are you? And he was like, no, I'd never do that. And he's like, but according to them, I'm your enemy. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. And I'd blow it off. And he finally pointed it out to me like, listen, man, how are you going to sit there talking about how white people are superior, but I'm still your best friend? And I think about it and I'm like, yeah, come on, man. It's just a thing. And he was like, it's more than a thing. You need to sit down and think. And it took me a long time to actually listen to what he was saying and finally sit down and think.
Isaiah wanted me to mention that this podcast was built almost as a direct response to a lot of the things we saw in America with 4 years of Trump, all the different riots based around BLM, Antifa. I'd love to get your take on how maybe some of those ideals that you fell into, the propaganda that you bought, may have been connected to some of the splinter groups that were attributed to Trump's rise.
I'm a little bit guilty of this myself. A lot of people want to say Trump made it possible for all these, new racist groups to be formed. In a way, yeah, I can agree with that. But I've kind of changed my ideas on that after really looking at things a lot deeper.
Mm.
Trump didn't really make this a thing. These people were always there.
Right.
Trump just made it more acceptable for them to come out of the darkness. A lot of white supremacists like to hide. They're not built like me, where it's like, I'm in your face. I don't care if you like me or not. Bring it. A lot of white supremacists are like, no, 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 no. We can't let nobody know what we're really like because there's going to be backlash.
Yeah, it's self-preservation, right?
Yeah. And me, on the other hand, I was in prison. I didn't care about any backlash. I had nothing to lose. So I'd let everybody know, yeah, I'm a skinhead. Yeah, I'm a racist. What about it? You don't like it? Kick rocks. In the mainstream, people have jobs to protect.
Yeah.
They're worried about losing things, so they keep it quiet.
Do you think Trump dog whistled to him?
In some aspects, yeah. He
Like
was
knowingly?
all. I don't know if he's actually smart enough to do it knowingly.
See, I'm of the same mind. Yeah, I don't know if it was ever intentional or if he was just like, whatever. I guess I did.
Yeah, I think he did in a way. He just didn't realize he was doing it because, I mean, listen, I'm from New Jersey. I have my own personal issues for not liking, Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is a great businessman. Other than that, he's not very smart, you know? And he was all about this whole freedom of speech thing. Say whatever you want. Doesn't matter whose feelings you hurt. Well, listen, freedom of speech only goes so far. You're free to say certain things and avoid prosecution. I'm free to say I'm apolitical. I don't like any politicians. I think they all suck. Nobody's going to put me in jail for that. But freedom of speech does have consequences because not everybody is going to agree with your speech. And if you say hurtful things and you make it seem acceptable to say those hurtful things, you're going to get a lot of people coming out of the darkness saying hurtful things. And it's going to lead to problems.
Yeah, freedom of speech doesn't mean you get to live in a vacuum.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean freedom of consequences for that speech.
Absolutely. So I'm curious then, maybe I have an idea of what the answer might be. When Charlottesville happened, and
Yeah.
I mean, that seemed to be a racially charged event. What were your thoughts about that? Did you feel like, I mean, I guess around the time that that happened, you were already out of SPS or
Yeah.
disconnected from it, and I guess polar opposite ideology wise. But what did you think about what people were marching for, and what people were trying to do to fight it, to stand up against it?
When Charlottesville happened, that was a scary thing for me. You know, being a former extremist myself and being in the white supremacy movement, um, and I saw all these different groups coming together and marching, and I was like, oh boy, they're starting to get some cohesion.
Mm.
They're starting to work together. This is bad because this is only the beginning. And immediately I started thinking, like, who can I reach out to? Who can I contact to tell them, hey, you need to get a handle on this because this is going to lead to a war. Like, this is the pipe dream that I had back in the 90s, that this would happen, that these groups would come together and we'd all start fighting. Which is what led to a lot of these people coming after me, because being an ex-convict, even though I had that conviction thrown out and overturned, I have other convictions that I was definitely guilty of. I've been to jail a couple of times. I'm not proud of that, and I've always had that old school mindset, you don't snitch. But when Charlottesville happened, I actually started calling the FBI and the state police and other law enforcement agencies and telling them, hey, listen, I'm a former skinhead. I've been in these groups. What kind of information do you need? What can I provide you that's going to help you bring them down?
Were they
And
receptive to that?
oh yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I've worked a couple of times with with the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and other organizations. And like I said, I finally, thanks to not just me, but a lot of other people, but my work with the Department of Homeland Security has actually led to the creativity movement being recognized as a terrorist organization.
You mentioned that at the beginning. That's fantastic. That must make you feel good to know that your contributions are having real effects, real consequences in positive directions.
Yeah. I feel bad for, the people that are getting involved in this just because they need to feel like they belong.
Yeah.
They feel like they need a higher purpose, and it's like, man, listen, I wish I could get into their head and get them to understand this isn't the way to do it, though. You're going to have some bad consequences from this.
Yeah. But knowing where you were then, I mean, it, would you have listened to anybody? Is there anything anyone could have said to make you snap out of it, open your eyes, open your ears?
It's the things that people said to me, when I started questioning, that helped get me out. One of the people is actually someone who served in the army with my father,
Mm.
a black man named Junior. And Junior and I were working together. And I've known this man since I was a child. And I mentioned him the one day. I said, hey, you do know that when I was in prison, I became a skinhead, right? And he just looked at me and he's like, why? And I couldn't give him an honest answer at the time. And that really started to, get the whole thing rolling to make me walk away from SPS, because I had to think about it. Why did I do that?
So that was the thread that you started at, like, why can't I give him an answer?
Yeah. I couldn't give him an honest answer. I can say it's because I was angry. It's because of this. It's because of that. But why did I really become that person?
Is
You know,
there any way? I mean, obviously, the reason for someone to start questioning why they're doing what they're doing, it that's going to be as varied as people are varied. Uh, can you think of any way to shine a spotlight on a thread that needs pulling for people?
empathy,
Mm,
empathy and dialogue. Don't automatically see somebody who claims to be a neo-Nazi or a racist or whatever and say, "Oh, well, screw you." It's hard. Having empathy is very hard because, listen, as much as I try and do good things nowadays, I still don't have empathy for a lot of people because I'm the grumpy old dude and I'm like, "You're a freaking moron, get away from me." you know, but I hear this a lot, and I've seen all the different memes about punching a Nazi in the face.
mm,
Punching a Nazi in the face has never got anybody to stop being a Nazi.
yeah,
That's only made them double down even more.
sure. It just gives them more of a reason to hate.
Yeah, you've just validated their propaganda, saying that everybody's out to attack the white man. If you want to truly get someone to think about their ideas, try and have some empathy and dialogue. Ask questions. Ask them, why do you believe this?
Yeah. What you said about your dad's friend Junior, uh, when you were telling him about being a skinhead, and his immediate response was to ask why. I mean, wow. I can only imagine what was going through his head, and
Yeah.
for that to be his go-to response. I mean,
Well, and
that embodies exactly what you were talking about, empathy and dialogue.
yeah, and because he knew me, he knew my family, he knew I wasn't raised with those beliefs. That's not what my family was about. I have three different aunts, my mom's sisters, who all married black men, and
Wow.
I have mixed cousins and everything. He knew that's not what my family was about. And when he asked me why, one of the first things I thought about is that's the same thing No Good asked me. And I blew it off. You know, I got to stop blowing this question off and actually think about it.
So you're doing a lot of good now. You're trying to fight the extremism that you espoused in your past. Do you think you could ever do enough good now to make up for the bad you did then? Do you
I'm
ever
not
feel like you could tip the scales?
I'm not trying to make up for what I did then.
Okay.
What I did then is, water under the bridge. I can't change that. I can't make up for it. All I can do now is try and make a better future for those to come. My grandchildren. I got two grandsons. I don't want them living in the same world that I lived in. I want them to have a better world. And that's the same thing every parent feels. I want to leave something better for my children.
Your children and your grandchildren, what have you taught them in terms of religion or ideology or dogma, or what kind of principles have you passed on? Have you been hands off? Have you answered questions open and honestly?
Yeah, my grandchildren aren't old enough to have that conversation yet.
Fair enough.
They're still really little. My one grandson's only in kindergarten. The other grandson, he's got a couple of years to go before he gets there. And my daughter, I've taught her think for yourself, be a critical thinker, look at everything and make a good decision. And if it's a decision that's going to harm someone else, it's probably not the path you want to take. So,
Adorable.
yeah, this is all in, which is Gaelic for beautiful.
Oh, nice.
When Charlottesville happened, I don't think a lot of people realized, that that kind of helped Trump. As bad as it was, as horrible as that ended, that actually helped Trump because a lot of these people realized, hey, just like me, they started to think this is the beginning. This is what we've been waiting for. And this is the guy that's going to be dumb enough to let us push this stuff through. And that pushed him right into the presidency because they all got out and voted, which normally a lot of these white supremacists, they don't vote. They stay away from the politics. And then all of a sudden, Charlottesville happens, Trump's running for president. And I know for a fact, because I had people telling me, hey, do you realize how many people in creativity actually went out and voted? And I'm like, oh no, this is bad. And Trump got elected because all these people that don't normally vote got up and said, that's the guy we need.
Now, you said the religion of creativity was started by a politician.
Yeah.
Are there other politicians that we might not be aware of that could have their hands in some of these kinds of pots?
Absolutely. I'm not going to be hyperbolic about this, but everybody talks about white supremacy within the military and the police and so on and so forth. And yes, they're there because when I was in the movement, we used to push guys that, weren't in prison or that only had misdemeanor charges, and they could still, have all their rights and privileges once they got out for these misdemeanors. We would tell them, hey, you need to get in the military, get your life in order, join the military, stay on the straight and narrow, but still follow this propaganda and these beliefs, but go get some training because we can use you when the time comes. So yeah,
sort of like building for future need, but also seeding.
Exactly. It's not about white supremacy trying to take over the police and the military. It's just about getting them training. So if they do ever get to a point of starting a war, they'll have soldiers.
What do you think the best way to combat that kind of thing is? Your position, you've got lots of information, people, names. So there's a lot that you can do to help government organizations, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security. But in terms of someone who has absolutely no connection to this world, has no knowledge that could help authorities, what is the best way, like as just a general average layman, like what's the best thing that they can do to?
Well, the first thing, is you have to take each person on an individual basis. The skinhead that I was isn't the same as anybody else in SPS. We're all individuals. You have to remember that. Not every person who's racist is going to believe the same things. People in the creativity movement don't believe the same things as someone who believes in Christian identity. People in Christian identity don't believe the same things that a skinhead believes. They're all individuals. On top of that, educate yourself about what white supremacy really is first. I've had somebody tell me, Well, white supremacy isn't just a movement, it's an ideology. To a certain extent, they're correct. It's a white person's belief that they are superior. But why do they believe that? It's not just about genetics for everybody. And I alluded to that earlier when I said Christian identity. They don't believe in genetics or evolution. They believe they're superior because their Bible tells them so. Whereas somebody in creativity believes it is about genetics and biology. Whereas someone who's a skinhead just believes, hey, I'm white and therefore, I deserve to be the predominant species on the planet. I don't care about any of that other stuff. I'm an apolitical skinhead. I don't care about religion, none of that. This is my in group. This is my gang. This is what I'm defending.
But it sounds like it just comes from a point of arrogance then. Like, this is me, this is what I am, therefore that's best.
For some people, it is. For some people, they have a belief because of propaganda and ideology. I need to protect myself and my race because everybody's out to get us. So you have to take it on an individual basis. And along with, back to educating yourself about white supremacy, know what to look for. Not every racist is going to have tattoos. Not every racist is going to use, the same terminology. And listen, it's a long process to learn all these different things. And also, there's a lot of people out there who want to claim that for people such as myself, there is no redemption. Once a Nazi, always a Nazi. It's not how that works. When you see people like myself and Jeff Scoop, and we're working hand in hand with somebody like Daryl Davis, who is one of the most amazing people I have ever met. When you see someone like me, don't just blow us off. Take what knowledge we can give you and use that. Please take whatever you can from me. If even if it's something negative, if you can turn that into a positive, do it. Daryl Davis and I have worked together a couple of different times. I've sent people to him that were looking to get out, and he's been on my channel. We had some great discussions.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
When was the first time you met him, though?
The first time we met was when he came on my channel.
Okay.
Well, we met over the phone before then. We did some work together with Beyond Barriers. Again, the group started by Jeff Scoop. Daryl is actually on the team for Beyond Barriers. I am no longer on the team for Beyond Barriers. I have too many other commitments. I couldn't put in the work that was necessary. So I had to bow out from that. Doesn't mean that I don't support them and I'm no longer trying to be an activist. I just, I didn't have time to focus on that, particular aspect of my activist work. But I do still, keep in touch with everybody, Daryl Davis, Jeff Scoop, everybody else over there, TM Garrett, and Daryl is an amazing individual. I can't promote him enough. The work that he's done over the decades is just absolutely amazing. And hopefully someday I'll be on par with all the work he's done. I'm trying to be.
Sure. And you would say he approaches those talks and those situations with empathy and dialogue. Hearing where people are coming from, meeting them where they're at, and really trying to bring positivity to it.
And simply asking questions. When Daryl first started doing the work that he does, it wasn't intentional. He was curious. Why are you a Klansman? Why do you believe what you believe? And then he realized, hey, I got this guy to leave the Klan. Let me see who else I can go talk to.
Mm.
And over the years, he's gotten, almost 300 people to leave the Klan just by simply asking questions and having a conversation.
Do you think that's that's basically the Socratic method, right? Just asking questions, probing,
Yeah.
uh, letting people come to their own realizations. Uh,
And letting people ask you questions,
mm,
and listen, don't get mad when somebody asks you a question. If it's bait, blow it off as bait. Let them know, hey, I'm not that stupid. You're not going to bait me. But if they ask you a question, an honest question, give them an honest answer to the best of your ability. If they want to debate and you're not capable of that debate, be honest about it and walk away. Let somebody else handle it.
mm.
I see a lot of people who have this arrogant attitude like, oh, you're just a Nazi. I can debate you on anything. Listen, not every Nazi's stupid. You know, there's a lot of people within white supremacy who are very well educated. And if they shut you down and they crush you in a debate, you're going to do more harm than good.
Yeah, that's a feather in their cap.
Yeah, know when to walk away.
Mm. Wow. Mm.
Made you think about that one, didn't I?
And a lot of this has me thinking about a lot of different things. This is very eye-opening. There's a lot to take away from here. And then there's still so much more to dive into. I hope you feel up to coming back and doing another episode.
Yeah, always. Yeah, I mean,
Fantastic.
this is racism and supremacy and extremism is such a convoluted issue. There are so many different tentacles, and so many different things to unwrap within this. It's not a simple answer. It's never going to be a simple answer. But at the same time, there are simple answers, such as empathy and dialogue.
I like that. No, well put. Would you say maybe a simple answer is like any position of extremism is probably wrong?
Yes. And one thing I do like to point out to people, and I see it more and more every day, people claiming that they're on the left and they're progressive and they're liberal. Listen, all that sounds great, but you cannot become that which you oppose. You
It's
know,
so easy to do too. It's so easy to fall into that
a
trap.
yeah, a British MP was recently murdered just a couple of days ago. And a lot of people on the left cheered about that.
Mm.
They saw it as a good thing because they didn't agree with Amos's politics. Listen, it's never okay to murder someone because you don't agree with them. That's not okay. Now you're becoming the same thing that you're fighting against.
I agree. I agree completely.
Does fighting hatred with hatred make sense? Absolutely not. you can't you can't become that which you oppose.
Sure.
uh, Number three, does mixing races make sense from biological and societal factors? Well, I don't see different races. We are all one human race. We are different ethnicities through evolution and whatever. Societal factors, that's a tough one, because you're going to have some people in society who, for whatever reason, think you shouldn't do that.
Sure.
And that's somebody you need to have a discussion with and explain to them how biology actually works. I like using when my channel hit 300 subscribers, my wife and I had a little celebration stream, and we went out and we got some home DNA kits and we sent those in.
Hmm.
And it was great because, well, I found out that I'm actually almost 1/4 West Asian or Arabic. So I'm not as white as everybody thinks I am. And it's pretty funny that one of the comments I got from somebody within white supremacy was, "Oh, I knew you didn't really look like a white man." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you let me join your group, didn't you?"
Wow.
So yeah,
But
everybody on this planet is mixed.
sure.
So if you find somebody within society who says it's not natural for, white people and black people to be together, explain to them why it is. And it's not as big a deal as people think.
Yeah. What in terms of that? So I know illegal immigrants, and I mean, a lot of people who tend to be Trump supporters are just like not in love with the idea of having bringing in refugees
Yeah.
or building the wall, that kind of thing. I mean, do you feel like borders are just artificial boundaries? Just, I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately meaningless. But like from a country standpoint, like, do we operate like a business? Should it be thought of as a business? So like, forget the ethnicity thing. Like, do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, because we
Yeah,
are a country of immigrants.
exactly. My thoughts about it are this: no matter what country you're in, somebody in your past immigrated to that country from Africa. We all came from Africa. Science proves it. I don't care how much you want to deny it or debate it. Go read a book. I don't know what to tell you.
Fair enough.
And as far as the whole illegal immigration thing within this country, how can you claim to be overrun with illegal immigrants, yet you also want to claim, oh, Joe Biden made it so there's not enough jobs? Well, which one is it? It's either the immigrants took all the jobs or we have a worker shortage. You can't have it both ways. uh, let's see. Number 4, is it racist to point out that races are different and have pros and cons? Well, absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. You can, I guess, in a way, you can say ethnicities are different, but what really are the different pros and cons of ethnicities? We're all human. We all have the same basic wants and needs. Um, I guess a con for me is I don't like calypso music. So what? Yeah.
What is calypso music? I don't think I'm familiar with that.
Caribbean music, the
Oh,
steel
okay.
drums and things like that. That would be a con for me moving to the Caribbean. I don't want to hear that every day. That has nothing to do with the color of someone's skin. You know, it doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what part of the world you come from. We're all human. And yeah, we all have different, there's different religions, different beliefs. As long as those beliefs are not harming anyone, who cares?
Hmm.
Nothing wrong
So
with it.
I want to be careful how I frame this question, because I don't think it informs my beliefs or anything, but it's just a thought that popped in there. So dogs, canines, are predominantly of the same species. There's
Right.
some incompatibility there, but of course, different breeds can interbreed. But some breeds are known to have some genetic deficiencies. I've got a German Shepherd. I've got to be careful about hip dysplasia. Apparently, cancer of the spleen, unfortunately, I found out is something I've got to be ever watchful of. Could that be considered a pro or con of different race if there's genetic leanings one way or the other? Because there are physical differences between ethnicities,
Sure,
in the human species, but being cognizant of that, or of things that could be more prone to developing cancers, like that's recognizing that as a genetic trait isn't necessarily racist, right?
I don't see that as racist, because listen to how you said it. There are different ethnicities that are more prone to having a certain cancer. It doesn't mean that, they're the only ones to get it. It just means they're more prone to it. Being a man, I'm more prone to having, certain diseases than a woman. I'm more prone to, be react to my emotions, my anger. I'm more prone to get angry than a woman. It doesn't mean that I'm less human than a woman, so yeah, it's not really racist to point out that certain ethnicities are more prone to having different health problems. Everybody can have those health problems. Some people just get them more than others.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually a thing through the human species. I don't know if
Well,
it is
sure.
the case.
Black people are more prone to get sickle cell anemia.
Mm,
It doesn't mean
that's a good
that
example.
they're any less human. It just means that if you have a certain amount of African genes, you're more prone to get this.
Okay, cool. I'm glad we covered that.
What is the best and worst ways to deal with or convert a Nazi? And we talked
We
about
covered
that,
this at length, yeah.
dialogue. Yeah, just have a conversation.
Mm.
And have an honest conversation. I want to make sure I emphasize on that. Have an honest conversation. Don't enter into a conversation with anybody over any kind of belief thinking I'm right, they're wrong.
Mm.
Listen, they may be wrong. It doesn't mean that you're 100% accurate either. Put your biases aside and ask honest questions and give honest answers.
Do you feel like those could be two opposing elements, like wanting to be empathetic and honest and have that dialogue? But I mean, if you're going to open up a conversation with a neo-Nazi, someone who holds these ideals true, how do you not already have a preconceived judgment there?
You're gonna, and it's a hard thing to put that aside. But approach when you want to approach somebody in anything, whether it's a conversation about getting, you know, having a conversation with somebody who's a neo-Nazi, having somebody or having a debate with somebody who's a flat earther, whatever. Find what you agree on first
Mm.
and go from there. Because I guarantee you, whether you want to believe me or not, if you're not racist and you want to talk to somebody who is, you're going to find things that you actually agree on, and it'll surprise you.
Good point. Good point. And that's very much what this channel is all about, finding that common ground, that embracing that empathy, that humility, that respect.
Yeah.
Just being able to say, hey, we're all humans, we're in this together.
And sometimes the hardest thing to do is humble yourself to have a conversation.
Mm,
You know, if you're not ready to do that, don't have the conversation. You're just going to cause more damage than good.
good point. Good point. Did you ever feel like you were a victim of self-deception?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I look back on a lot of, because every now and then I'll go back and I'll look at, some of the teachings from creativity or these different racist groups, and I'll read over that and be like, I can't believe you actually believed that at one time. Like, the hell's wrong with you? And then I have to remind myself, well, you're older now, you're more educated, so don't be so hard on yourself.
So there was a tinge of perhaps hatred or anger that you might have felt directed at yourself.
I don't know if I would necessarily say anger. It was more disappointment, like, really, dumbass. Yeah. Like, well, why would you do that? And then I think about why I did that. And it's like, all right, yeah, I can see how that could happen.
Do you think that makes it easier to talk to other people that were like you then now?
Well, yeah. Yeah, that's why I do that.
Okay.
To remind myself, hey, it's not that this person's an idiot or just, a psychopath or whatever. They just got misled like you did. Don't forget where you came from.
Mm.
This was a good talk.
Oh, fantastic.
I would definitely, come back and delve into this some more.
I'm sure Isaiah would love to pick your brain, especially over the talks with Daryl Davis. And yeah, I think
Yeah,
he'd lose his mind to get him on here as well.
and like I said, this is a very big topic. One thing I do want to point out before we cut this off is there's this belief that, and I'm not quite sure where it comes from, but a belief that started recently that Black people can't be racist. Listen, that is absolutely untrue,
Mm.
unequivocally false. There's a group that I am currently trying to bring attention to. I mean, I am, but I don't want people falling into this ideology. This is not a good thing. Be aware of it because it's a bad thing. They are called the ISUPK, the International School for Universal Practical Knowledge, and they call themselves Black Hebrew Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
They are no different than Aryan nations, other than the fact that they are Black and not white. They preach the same hateful ideology. They believe they are God's chosen people and therefore should rule over all other ethnicities. That is blatantly racist. And I get it that Black people in the United States have been persecuted for hundreds of years. Don't join this group because you want to feel more powerful. It's not going to end well. You're going to get sucked into a world of hate that's only going to make things worse.
So in connection to that, I'm sure you've heard the argument that if there isn't the element of power, like a race can't be considered racist if they don't have power. Just
Yeah,
flat out, you completely disagree with that.
I completely disagree with that. The majority of white supremacists have never had any kind of systemic power. Now, people that did have power used that power advantage to draw in these lower class people and build their organizations. But most people who are racist don't have any kind of systemic power.
Maybe that's a good thing. thank you so much for the opportunity to have this talk. I've been looking forward to this. The idea
Yeah.
to be able to sit down and have a conversation with someone who held a thought process that I feel is completely antithetical to my own. I mean, it's the reason this podcast exists. So being able to have this this opportunity to be able to talk with you, Ed, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any last thoughts?
Yeah, my last thoughts are just trying to have a conversation. You know, you can't fight hate with hate. And just to let everybody know, especially those who already know who I am and follow me on social media, on November 1st, I will be getting a cover-up tattoo thanks to a whole lot of donations from some really great people. And this giant swastika on my stomach is going to disappear.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Incidentally, I do have a swastika myself here, but it is the area, and it is the it was for Hinduism, actually, the reason why I got it. And I do want to close off in saying that you know, as you know, that Hitler actually took that symbol, which was it's actually a symbol of peace, and you know, he distorted it. And I am, so I just to let you, give you some context, I'm actually feeling a lot better right now because I've been laying down. But I did get my second corona vaccine shot Tuesday, and I was in a lot of pain. Or I got it Wednesday. I was in a lot of pain with my arm, and I had to get another shot, not related. And I think they just interacted wrong, and so I was throwing up. So I could not 100% pay attention because I was kind of nodding in and out. But so many things that you said right today just totally has made me rethink about the situation. Because as I said, or as Chrono said, I asked him if he could mention this, that literally the idea of this podcast is actually founded upon Daryl Davis's method, which is to sit down. So being a Mexican American growing up, actually did experience racism from some like Peckerhead. I'm sorry,
Peckerwoods.
Peckerhead. I can't believe I said Peckerhead. Peckerwoods. And the guy who primarily was doing it, I've hooked up with him as an adult, and he's actually married to a Mexican woman now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so amazing though to hear him. You know, I wanted to contact him as an adult and let him know that like I didn't hold any of that stuff against him from the past, because some of the stuff made us feel really bad growing up. You know, being a minority, and he told me about how much of that actually came from home, and how he was able to mature past it as an adult and make the decisions for himself. And this podcast is a result of years literally seeing conversations online just totally going in the wrong direction. And for me, I usually use atheist co-host here, and we talk about a variety of topics and issues. And many of the times, maybe 90% of the times, we do not see eye to eye on issues, but that doesn't mean that we can't respect each other along the way. So I think the more we can sit down and have honest conversations, what you're talking about, honesty, I mean, if you listen to conversations I have, there's so many times I'm like, I don't know, and I'm not going to disrespect you by pretending to give you an answer that I can't answer. So I'm just gonna have to say I don't know. That's probably like the second most common thing I've said on this channel. But that being said, I really would like to do a round two with you. Hopefully I'll be 100%. And I really thank both of you guys for your time. Chrono, you had some amazing questions.
Yeah.
Ed, you had some amazing responses. I really wish I could have been here for all of it, but I'm out to rewatch this. And I really think that someone's going to listen to this and benefit from it. So that being said, we want to thank you for joining us today at R.H.E. Podcast. Please be sure to subscribe if you're not already. And you can check us out at www.rhepodcast.com or send us an email at rhepodcast@gmail.com. You can also look us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, just about everywhere you can find someone. Spotify, you can find us. So this is what we're doing. We're having conversations. We're being respectful. We're showing humility, talking about the things that we don't know. and having respect all along the way. I think those three words are so specific and so deliberate that when I was putting this together with the Atheist Coast, we were like, it's so important to have these three. So yeah, thank you. We look forward to seeing you back again. Goodbye.